Yeah. Hello and welcome to round 4 of Grand Prix Kansas City. I'm Ben Swartz, joined here in the booth by Marshall Sutcliffe, and we have magic for you. Luis Scott Vargas on the left-hand side of your screen, facing off against Ben Rasmussen on the right-hand side of your screen. Luis starts off with a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman. Let's see what Ben has. Looks like Ben's playing Robots or Affinity, and Luis is on the Melirapod deck.
That's what it seems to be here.
And
sure enough, Ornithopter for Ben Rasmussen after playing a Blinkmoth Nexus. Now, this deck is capable of some insane starts, and that really isn't one of them, is it, Ben?
No, all that Ben was able to do was play Ornithopter there. I see he has a Thoughtcast in hand along with a Mox Opal, but unable to get Metalcraft on that Mox Opal means that he can't really have super explosive draws. Speaking of explosive draws, though, Luis Scott Vargas, turn 2 Birthing Pod. Getting ready for an explosive turn 3.
Yeah, now he did have to take a couple of damage to do that, which isn't something that you want to do against an aggressive deck like Affinity, but that being said, he's certainly happy to do it to get that Birthing Pod online. It can make his next turn absolutely insane.
Well, here's the explosive draw that Ben wanted. He plays Mox Opal, a Signal Pest, and then a Cranial Plating. He's threatening 4, 5, maybe 6 points of damage on the following turn.
See a Chord of Calling off the top for Luis Scott Vargas. He also has a Voice of Resurgence in his hand, along with a few lands.
He's got a Melira also in his hand.
Okay.
He can't quite go off this turn, right? He's a little short.
He's going to need a repeatable sack outlet, which he doesn't currently have, and some type of persist creature.
Yeah.
Well, wow, he's going to take another 2 though, so maybe he can. No, he's just going to play a Voice, sack the Voice
to go get.
So he's going to get a Kitchen Finks. That's going to bump him back up to 15. And now he's 1 repeatable sack outlet away from going off the next turn.
Yep.
He's also he can actually sacrifice the token next turn to go get Viscera Seer and then just play his Melira, and then he can go off. So right now Ben Rasmussen in a horrifically bad spot here.
Is there anything that he can do from this
I don't think so. He does have a Thoughtcast in his hand to draw cards, but the Affinity deck doesn't have the luxury of devoting slots to removal or disruption really of any kind. It's a very linear deck.
Unless he's got like a main deck Tormod Script or Relic of Progenitus.
Right, and that's just highly unlikely, as those those cards don't attack or do anything proactive, and like I said, the deck just can't really afford to run cards like that generally. There's a burn spell though.
Wow.
Now, does he have access to red mana? He does.
Yes. Mox Opal gives him access to red. Metalcraft is turned on.
Yes.
But is he going to overextend here? Maybe equip that Cranial Plating and play a Signal Pest? Or is he afraid that he's going to lose on the following turn? I mean, if you're Ben, do you think that you're that close to death? I mean,
he's got to be aware of it here. I mean, Galvanic Blast, which is what he has in his hand, is generally used as a finisher in the deck, because it can do 4 damage to the face. It can kill planeswalkers if he finds himself in that unfortunate position.
Looks like
and it can get rid of pesky blockers like Restoration Angel. But for now,
wow, used it on actually the exact wrong creature. If he used it on either of the other creatures, Luis could not go off on his turn.
No, and he could even kill the token, which is really key here because Luis wants to be able to go find Viscera Seer. Now, of course, remember we have to remember that Ben Rasmussen is not aware that Luis has a Melira in his hand.
It doesn't matter. Melira or Chord allows him to go off.
It's true.
So Luis draws another Deathrite Shaman, and then he's going to cast Melira.
Yep, he's going to sacrifice his token, and he should be good to go here, as he has his opponent. Oh, I guess not.
He's just going to cast Chord of Calling.
He's just going to cast Chord to do it, sure. And that's it. So either way, Luis Scott Vargas, good to go.
Because it allows him,
instead of gaining an arbitrarily large amount of life, he can actually just kill his opponent with red cap.
Yep.
Either way would effectively have ended the game, as Ben Rasmussen's deck isn't able to deal. You know, some of the decks in the format actually can, like Luis's deck can get through a million life.
Yep.
Like it can take care of that, but Ben Rasmussen's deck is not one of the ones that can do that. And Luis says, well, instead of gaining a ton of life, I'll just kill you this turn instead with Chord.
So Luis up a game here in round 4.
A quick one.
Yeah, very quick one. But it just goes to show how powerful the Melira deck is against Affinity, at least game 1. And
yeah, let's take a look at a slide we have here for Melira. And also there's Kiki Jiki combo pod as well. As we can see, it's a combo deck that doesn't need to run otherwise bad cards in order to operate. That's a really key thing for this deck. Every spell that it plays does something. I mean, sure, Viscera Seer on its own isn't exactly a powerhouse, but overall the average card quality is quite high for these decks.
I mean, that's the thing at first look about Voice of Resurgence that's so powerful, is just on its own, it's a very, very powerful creature.
Yes.
And it just so happens that you can sack it and get, free token and have yourself a little bit of protection against opponents like counterspells or instants, right?
That's right. It allows the pilot to tutor up the combo or as an answer, this is for Birthing Pod, to the opponent's plan if necessary, giving the player more control over usually random aspects of the game. So it helps smooth out a lot of things. This deck has answers for essentially everything that it'll see in the format in the form of creatures, harmonic sliver, things like that it can tutor up and use to take care of what your opponent's doing, means that in the main deck it's got answers to everything. Now, it doesn't always come together where they can get them on the battlefield, but even just having access is really important.
And then lastly, even without Birthing Pod, the deck can play fair.
Yes.
And if you look at, as you said before, the creature quality, the creatures are actually just good enough to keep down.
Yes, they're very good. And one of the sort of unsung heroes of the deck as well, we did get a chance to see it briefly, though it wasn't a factor in game one, is Gavany Township. There's a lot of times when you can just play out a bunch of creatures and township up, and your opponent has all this artifact removal for your Birthing Pods and trying to disrupt your combo, and you're just like, I'm going to make dudes and attack you with them. Let's take a look at Ben Stark versus Owen Turtenwald.
Owen's on Storm here. Ben is on Scape Shift.
Owen has been a proponent of the Jund with White deck for quite a while here, but looks like he's jumped ship and he's going the way of John Finkel.
Yeah, I think him and Huey are playing the Storm deck, Owen and Huey.
Storm deck's undergone some changes after having
Seething Song was banned.
Seething Song banned from it, but it looked like it's still here. And there's Pyretic Ritual here for Owen, as it looks like he's looking to get his Pyromancer Ascension online.
No, it looks like Pyromancer Ascension is online.
Oh, is that a 2 on that dice? Yeah, you're correct.
But, I mean, here you get to see the two really important cards in Storm here, Goblin Electromancer and Pyromancer's Ascension. Yeah. Both in play, both, able to do what they do best. And every time that Owen casts a Pyretic Ritual or any other spell, he gets to both copy it and it costs him 1 less mana. So for each one of those Pyretic Rituals that he casts, he gets 5 mana.
Yep.
And this is his third spell of the turn, it looks like. And so Ben is considering remanding the Pyretic Ritual just so he can draw himself a card. That adds 1 to the Storm count.
And it looks like Owen had cast probably this turn a...
wow. So
what did he hit?
Off, the remand got a Lightning Bolt.
Oh,
takes out the Goblin Electromancer.
Oh, that's nice. That'll slow down Owen for sure. At least it potentially can. Now, what we're seeing here is Owen, he's attempting to go off this turn.
Yep.
This is a turn where he's going to kill Ben Stark if he can. And Ben's putting up a bit of a fight. Now, the cards you see below Ben's lands, he's not a lands in front of creatures guy. He's doing this because he was probably Gitaxian probed, and so he's just, as a courtesy to a player that he knows, and he's just leaving the cards revealed.
So Owen casts another Pyretic Ritual.
Why don't we stay on this for just a minute? If this
Yeah, Owen with the Past in Flames it's probably going to do it, right? He's got a couple grape shots in his graveyard. Can draw two grape shots in his graveyard. Storm's at 7.
Yeah.
Ben's at 14. Double grape shot. That should be game.
Okay, yeah, we can go back to the original master shot.
So it looks like Owen will take that first game over Ben Stark. And we're going to head back to our Table A match, Luis Scott Vargas versus Ben Rasmussen. Play has already started on that match.
Ooh,
Ben has a pretty explosive.
Quick start for Ben here, yeah.
Turn 1.
And those are all +1 mana.
Vault
Scourge and second turn Etch Champion.
An Etch Champion on the second turn. Metalcraft is enabled here. So yeah, that Etch Champion has protection from everything. Ooh, but Kataki's Warge Waves for Luis is
straight out of the board on turn 2.
Wow. And again, another benefit to the Melirapod deck is that not only, a lot of decks can run Kataki and even do out of the board, his can search it up.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
I mean, what is Ben going to do here? He has to pay 1 mana for every single one of his artifacts.
Yeah.
What is he going to save?
So if he'd like to save his creatures, he can use both of his lands to do that, and he can save his Mox Opal just by tapping it to pay for itself. That would keep his board state the same, but essentially prevents him from moving forward with this game at all. So he would have to ride this Etch Champion all the way to the victory. That's going to be pretty tough for him. Now, he does get land drops here. And the Etch Champion is quite good here. It's going to be able to apply pressure consistently throughout the rest of this game. And if he can manage to find a way to cast, equip, and keep that cranial plating on the battlefield, he's going to be able to do huge chunks of damage.
So it looks like he's going to keep that Darksteel Citadel and the 2 creatures onto the battlefield.
Yes.
Or maybe not. Yeah, get rid of the Darksteel Citadel.
He's tapping for mana first.
He has another Glimmervoid, though.
Uh-huh.
That's not bad. Still let him keep Metalcraft on the following turn, but only really able to deal 3 damage a turn and basically tread water. Passes the turn back to Luis, and Luis has got to have a bunch. I know he's got Kusali Pride Mage in his hand.
Yes.
Harmonic Sliver in his deck to take out some artifacts. If he just takes out 1 more artifact,
yeah,
then he can get at that Etched Champion. Or even just like, I don't know, Voice of Resurgence in this board is pretty sweet.
I mean, it just attacks for 2, right?
I mean, against the 2/2 and the 1/1, like.
Yeah, he could race. I mean, basically, Luis just needs to develop his board in any way. Like, if he just starts committing things to the board, Ben is not going to be able to do that consistently for the rest of this game. And Luis Scott Vargas has free reign. Sure, his life total's under a bit of assault here. Looks like he's going to lead off just with a Lingering Souls here. And he's going to attack with Kataki. So Lingering Souls is going to prevent Vault Scourge from living. And it looks like Ben is going to use his 2 Glimmervoids to protect his creatures from Kataki, and then the Mox Opal is going to protect itself. Again, Ben is able to keep this board state at parity currently, but if he loses any artifact, the Etched Champion is going to lose its protection from all colors ability, and things are going to start going downhill pretty quickly for Ben. Also, if Luis Scott Vargas does go for that Kusali Pride Mates, takes out the Vault Scourge, that Mox Opal is not going to have Metalcraft anymore and can't produce mana. And Ben Rasmussen is going to be way up against it.
So you think he should have cast that this turn instead of Lingering Souls?
Probably not. He's protecting his life total here. He's using up his mana. I think he's okay. Let's see what he has for this turn.
Ben couldn't attack him with that Vault Scourge for the reason you just said.
I think he just drew a Harmonic Sliver again.
Wow.
Yeah, this is just getting kind of ugly. Yeah, and remember,
I feel bad for Ben.
I mean, one of the I don't. Affinity player. But, yeah, I mean, and the other problem here, of course, for Ben is that once Luis clears out the rest of his artifacts, those Glimmervoids are going to die on end step as well. And it's going to leave Ben with just no permanence at all. So Luis Scott Vargas firmly in the driver's seat here as we see that play we just mentioned a minute ago. Vault Scourge hits the bin from Harmonic Sliver.
I mean, Ben here probably only saves the Etched Champion, lets the Opal get binned.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything now anyway.
But he did draw a Galvanic Blast on his last turn, so he can get rid of that Kataki, but still has to pay for one of his artifacts.
Triggers on the stack. He cannot pay for the Mox Opal. So now that lone Etched Champion is the only thing holding back Luis from completely wiping the board, but Darksteel Citadel is going to help out a lot with those Glimmervoids. And it looks like Ben's going to have mana for the foreseeable future here, though you can't be happy if you're in his seat, as he's still facing down Luis with a grip of cards and a superior board state.
I mean, the good news for Ben is he's back to kind of normal, right? He's no longer under Kataki, but little does he know, Luis has that Kusali Pride Mage in hand, and just like he's got a Pontiff, a bunch of other cards that just can slowly start taking Ben out of this game while he's trying to recoup.
Further problems for Ben Rasmussen here. He's also just being beaten down.
Yeah.
This clock is pretty significant.
Abrupt decay on the Etched Champion. Luis is going to attack Ben down to 13.
The Etched Champion was 1 artifact away from being active again, and Luis didn't want to see that happen, so he's just going to kill it on his turn and get everything over with there.
Springleaf Drum. Cranial Plating. Steel Overseer, and then Cranial Plating for Ben, so he's out of cards.
He's out of cards, but he's managed to get something going here with that Inkmoth Nexus. He can activate it and then activate his Steel Overseer. His problems, though, are much bigger than that, as he's currently just being beaten down. And again, he's on 0 cards. Luis has 6 in his hand.
Yeah.
Luis has missed a couple of land drops in a row here.
But he also has Lingering Souls in his graveyard. Here's
a Pride Mage for Luis. He's still going to attack with multiple creatures here, though. He wants to leave back that one to block the Inkmoth Nexus, and he's going to Pride Mage away the Steel Overseer before Ben has a chance to activate it at all. Again, making sure that that Inkmoth Nexus has 1 toughness is really important, because that means that his Lingering Souls tokens are live to block it. Once it gets a +1/+1 counter on it, that becomes less and less of an option, and Luis doesn't want to get randomly killed by Inkmoth with Cranial Plating on it.
Well, Ben's going to attack in Inkmoth Nexus, and it gets blocked by the token.
And Ben kind of pauses.
He's got a Galvanic Blast in his hand. He could not let Luis block.
I think Ben just made a mistake there. I think he misread what was going on, because you see him pause when Luis blocked, and he's like, wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, if this Inkmoth Nexus dies, it's pretty much over for Ben.
I mean, this was his main shot at mounting some type of offensive. All right, well, he's just got to bite the bullet here, and after blocks, kill it. I get maybe he didn't know what kind of token it was, or he just forgot, or maybe he thought his Inkmoth was going to be bigger, wasn't going to be trading off, but he was wrong, and he had to burn a Galvanic Blast and get no poison in for the turn that time. Kitchen Finks, another resilient threat for Luis Scott Vargas, and we mentioned it before, no Birthing Pod in sight here, but just not that relevant. His creatures are just good.
And so Ben here casts another Steel Overseer off the top.
Okay.
Something.
That can help. He's at 10, so he's not out of this quite yet, but he's not like he's going to be able to block this turn.
Although if Luis has another land, he's got a Murderous Redcap in his hand, and he does draw a land.
He needs to be black or red mana source here, though.
It's Misty Rainforest.
So he can get black with that.
And let's see what he decides to do. He's got Pontiff, Court of Calling, Murderous Redcap, another Lingering Souls. It's got a lot of options.
Sitting at 14 life.
He's going to crack that Misty Rainforest. Go get an Overgrown Tomb.
Both untapped, so that's going to put him down to 11, but I don't think he really cares about his non-poison life total at this point. This is going to allow him to red cap the Steel Overseer, bin that thing, and once again leave Ben Rasmussen with no real creatures on board, just the Inkmoth Nexus. And again, you see Luis play it safe here and leave back that Lingering Souls token. He doesn't want Ben to play and cast another Cranial Plating, equip both of them up or something, and take potentially lethal poison in one shot.
Whip Flare for Ben. That wipes Luis's
wow,
board.
Not too bad, but the 2 Persisters do come back. Not too bad, though.
Yeah.
That's going to leave Luis with only 3 power on the table. It's going to drop Ben Rasmussen down to 5 and bump Luis back up to 13.
That's just the way it should be anyway. Well, that's what the old policy was. It's different now, but like I said, it works better.
And so Ben here is thinking about firing up that Nexus.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks. I'm sorry. No worries. Not a very good.
He's on a 2-turn clock, but he's got to wonder if activating the Nexus and blocking one of these creatures is really going to get him where he wants to go.
Yeah, I don't see how he wins without doing that. But he's dead to a land here. Or a Pontiff.
Yeah.
Yep, Pontiff gives all his creatures +1/+1, and that's game.
And that's it. Luis Scott Vargas is successful in his bid to beat Ben Rasmussen. Pretty impressive fashion there. I mean, it didn't really look like much of a game for either of them. I mean, Ben did what he could to survive.
Blowout would be the word I would
It was kind of a blowout. It really was. Like, if we're being honest with the viewing audience, that was kind of a beating. Kataki's Wars Wage, one of the best sideboard cards against Ben's deck. Now, I'm not sure if the other match is still going, but if it is, they're shuffling up. So we are going to, we're going to go over there and check out that one. Much different match than what we saw here. Basically 2 combo decks going at it.
Okay. So you got.
I really like Owen's deck for the tournament, but don't forget we've got upcoming events, July 27th, 28th in a couple weeks. We have Grand Prix Rimini. You can watch it live on twitch.tv/magic. And dailymtg.com, follow the coverage.
Yep.
And if you're in North America, there's Grand Prix Calgary that same weekend. There's not going to be live video coverage of that, but if you happen to be around the area, be sure to go to Grand Prix Calgary.
Yep, play some Standard.
Yeah. Are you going to go to Calgary?
I was thinking about it, actually.
How far away is that for you?
I don't know. I've never been to Calgary.
Yeah, me neither.
It's like in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like a 3-hour flight from
Okay.
Seattle, something like that. Just a guess.
You could go to Rimini instead.
I would love that.
Why don't you go?
Significantly longer flight.
Well, I mean, you can watch it at home
Plus, that one's limited and
on Twitch.tv.
That is tempting.
Aren't you a limited master?
No, I'm not a master, but I am an enthusiast.
Anyway, be sure to check those two tournaments out, and we'll be following Owen Turtenwald versus Ben Stark heading into Game 2. So it does look like Owen won that game.
I wonder if he went off that turn.
I mean, he can't. It looked like he had Ben at that exact moment.
He certainly did.
Maybe these players have shuffled a little bit and are mulliganing.
Oh, a little judge intervention. Okay.
I didn't know that they had already moved it over there.
All right. Well, their misfortune is our fortune as we get to see even more action here on the stream between two really great players here, Ben Stark and Owen Turtenwald.
Sorry, between getting my
Ben
I just have one question.
is a four-time Pro Tour top eighter and a Pro Tour champion, and Owen Turtenwald was the 2011 Player of the Year.
So I was busy changing.
Both players on 3-buys, so this is the first match that they're playing today.
Ben also up for a Hall of Fame vote this year.
Absolutely. He's definitely one of the names getting thrown around with regularity.
I mean, 4 top 8s is something not to scoff at.
Yep. Also, I think one of the things that I can appreciate about Ben's career is the duration of it. He's been playing for a really long time and has shown a lot of dedication to the game, and you got to respect that.
I remember the first webcast that I stayed up against my parents' wills to watch was Pro Tour Kobe, the one that Masahiro Kuroda won. It was mirrored in block constructed. Ben Stark was in that top 8.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, that was back in 2004. That was Rashad S. Miller's first Pro Tour, apparently.
I know what the S stands for.
Has a special place in his heart. I remember staying up all night because it was Japan time. My brother and I stayed up watching it, huddled around the computer, hoping that our parents wouldn't wake up.
Keeping the volume just high enough to hear it, but not loud enough to wake them up. I like it.
Then they came in the next morning, saw us bleary-eyed, like.
Yeah, but then it was too late, right?
Yeah.
Like they couldn't do anything at that point. All right, so players looking at their opening 7 here, and they've both kept Valakut. The Molten Pinnacle is going to lead things off for Ben Stark. His deck actually wants more blue mana early in the game, but he'll just get that tap land out of the way early.
Land go for both players. Owen's going to fetch his Scalding Tarn. Go find his Steam Vents. And Owen's ideal play here is a turn 2 Goblin Electromancer or Pyromancer's Ascension. He's got to know that Ben's probably bringing in Nature's Claim.
Yes.
And maybe like a Pyroclasm or more burn. But Owen is,
there it
going to
is.
cast Ascension.
All right, now is that thing going to survive? No, it is not.
Is It Charm is going to counter it, unless Owen could pay 2 colorless mana, which he cannot.
Is It Charm is a really great card in this matchup for Ben Stark. It basically takes care of the 2 biggest problems. The first one being Pyromancer Ascension, which we just saw how it can deal with that. And the other one being Goblin Electromancer. It can kill it by doing 2 damage to it. So great use of one of the more recent cards from Return to Ravnica, Is It Charm, here in Modern.
Yeah.
I do love me an Is It Charm.
I really like Is It Charm. I remember playing in a tournament shortly before Return to Ravnica came out, and my opponent cast Is It Charm. It was a legacy tournament. Like, looked at it, never seen this card before.
Yeah.
Like, I called a judge, like, is this thing legal? But Goblin Electromancer comes out for Owen. It was in the Is It versus Golgari dual deck, making it legal in legacy for a short period of time before Return to Ravnica came out.
That's funny. All right, so Goblin Electromancer here for Owen is pretty threatening.
Does Owen have something else?
He does.
Manamorphose. He's going to try to make a run of it?
He could. I mean, remember, this Manamorphose only costs 1 mana thanks to Electromancer, therefore he nets a mana. Here's the Desperate Ravings.
Still floating 2 mana.
I like how Owen does it the professional way, too. Doesn't look at what they are first.
And discards Cascade buffs.
He's already played his land for the turn, so he probably doesn't want it, but I think he's just passed. So he's just doing a little bit of cycling, just to try to set up the perfect hand. The general way that the Storm deck plays out is similar to this. Usually you don't use Manamorphose, but you use cards like Desperate Ravings, like Serum Visions, to try to set up the hand that gives you the best chance of going off at the right time. I mean, generally, this deck will go as long as it needs to until it has all the tools in place to go. Ben's deck is much different. It's much more explosive. It's going to build up land drops through Farseek and Sakura Tribe Elder, and then when it gets to the correct number, which is usually 7, then it will play Scape Shift, and it can do 18 damage on the spot. If he waits a little bit longer, it can do a lot more damage if he needs to. Now, against Owen's deck, I don't think he will need to do more. Owen's already at 18, and I don't think he has any way to gain life in the deck. So,
nope. I think Owen is looking for some grape shots because that'll allow him to go off. Here, he casts Desperate Ritual.
Well, this is a sign that he's going off now, right?
Yeah. Or casting Pyromancer's Ascension.
Okay. I mean,
he wanted to put... Oh, no. So a second Desperate Ritual, get him a counter on Pyromancer's Ascension.
Now he needs some card draw or some filtering to try to hit something else here.
I think he has another Desperate Ritual in his hand.
He's got Desperate Ravings.
Okay.
And that's not going to trigger the Ascension. But it is going to get him a look at another card here.
So 3 gets discarded. That's Goblin Electromancer.
He's got to be fine with that.
Yeah, doesn't really need a second copy of that. Drew a Serum Visions and a Sleight of Hand.
Ooh, those were good.
But he really wants to be able to cast that when Pyromancer's Ascension is active.
Exactly. Something like a Manamorphose here would have been completely perfect for him. Oh, I thought he had already played his land. My mistake. So now he does play his land.
Probably going to get an island here.
Going to get 1 fewer lands floating around in the deck as well.
Which do you cast here, Sleight of Hand or Serum Visions?
I'd probably cast Serum Visions, I think.
You want to set up for the following turn?
Yeah, well, that way you know what you're going to get with the Sleight of Hand anyway. It depends on what he's digging for.
Well, here's Sleight of Hand.
All right, let's see what he does.
2 not so great cards,
Yeah.
Pyromancer's Ascension and Misty Rainforest. And I think he's taking the Misty, and he's just going to have to pass the turn.
So he was really trying to hit that Manamorphose.
Oh, he's going to cast Serum Visions.
All right,
does
he's
he have any
still
mana
trying to hit it.
I don't think he does, right? He used the... Oh, he does have 2 red mana floating.
He did hit a Ritual here. Is
But
it one that he's already got in there?
Well, it doesn't matter, because
he can't cast anything. Well, he'll have access to red afterwards, but
he can't. He doesn't have any grape shots, right? So he can't cast.
That's right.
A storm spell here that matters. He would need Past in Flames.
Yeah, I'm actually that's what I was thinking of. More Past in Flame situation. But Owen was basically digging to try to get that Ascension active. That's why he cast Sleight of Hand. It lets him see 2 cards right away instead of just the one that you get.
So Owen draws a second Sleight of Hand.
Yeah, that's what he put on top with his Visions. He put the other card on the bottom, so the 2 cards on top are unknown. Now, right now, though, he's got to be worried. Ben Stark passed the turn back.
And he's 1 mana short.
But Ben does have access to Cryptic Command mana here. He can remand twice. He can remand 3 times, actually.
So Sleight of Hand comes down, adds a second counter to Pyromancer's Ascension, but before that happens...
It's going to get bounced. He's going to counter bounce, or he's going to something bounce. So he's going to return Pyromancer Ascension to its owner's hand. That's with the trigger on the stack. So let's see if this resolves for starters. I don't know what his other play was. I'm assuming just counter the slight.
Yeah, or draw a card. Yeah, it is counter the Sleight of Hand and draw, and bounce the Pyromancer's Ascension. Owen's going to continue getting in with his Goblin Electromancer here. Kind of a gutsy play if he didn't have a second Electromancer, because there's a chance that Ben has a Snapcaster.
Yep, good call.
It's possible that Owen knows that Ben's not playing Snapcaster.
Though this is the first round that they've played, so you would have to have that type of information. All right, so Pyromancer Ascension and another Goblin Electromancer, and Ben says, look, I've got Scape Shift, and that's all I need to win. Owen says, okay, that's cool, man, but I'm going to make you show me.
Yeah, make sure you've got enough mountains in your deck, even though Ben has 0 mountains in play.
He's sacrificing 6 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's 18, so you're dead.
Okay, and we're going to go to a game 3 here as Ben evens things up 1 game apiece. Round 4, Grand Prix, Kansas City.
Owen was close there. He almost if he gets that Ascension active and gets on tap, he's got a really good chance of going off, but he wasn't quite able to find what he needed with his card draw spells.
But so that's the thing of note here is that the Storm deck's usually 1 turn faster than the Scapeshift deck. But if the Scapeshift deck has really any amount of disruption, which, you know, it was able to take care of the Pyromancer's Ascension that game twice, right? Countered the first one and bounced the second one. But
so let's take a look at the Storm combo. It says it can completely ignore what the opponent is doing. It's a true Goldfish deck if it wants to be. That's a pretty nice thing to do. It's dedicated to only getting its combo off as quickly as possible. It spends its turn sculpting its hand until the pile is ready to go off. So, you know, we saw some of that from Owen in that game. And as early as turn 3, the deck can chain together enough rituals and cantrips to cast a lethal Grape Shot. And yeah,
it's really tough for it to go off
general
turn
way
3,
to win.
But it used to be pretty
It used to be able to do it
because of Seething Song. You could go turn 2 Goblin Electromancer and then kind of win a good amount of the time, but compare that to Scapeshift, which can play like a control deck until it hits 7 lands, like we saw Ben hit, and just cast Scapeshift, searching up 6 mountains and 1 Valakut, dealing 18 damage to their opponent.
Yep.
And has a little bit more interactivity, as you saw, than other combo decks. It's not just, you know, all one road. Some versions have Primeval Titan. They'll allow you to attack in, get more Valakuts, or just attack in with a big 6/6. And setting up the combo kill, killing your opponent, can be done just with only lands with a Valakut deck. Unlikely you're going to be able to see that, but players here shuffling up for game 3. Ben S is really well known for Scapeshift, right? He did very well in one of the first Modern tournaments ever, and he's got a couple of top 8s with Scapeshift, if I remember correctly, right? He did well
I think so. I'm not sure.
Grand Prix Lincoln.
I know he loves the deck.
I think.
I bumped into him here by our desk, and I was like, "Hey, what are you running today?" And he just sort of shrugged and looked at me. It's like, "Yeah, all right, Scapeshift. I get it."
Never mind, you're good. Don't worry. We played them. We got 20. We got 1.
Yeah, so
I think they said you had 5 extra, right? Plus we should have had a couple.
looks like Ben's been playing the Scapeshift deck since before Modern, right?
We have Hall of Famer Svi Moshowitz reminding us on Twitter. Well, we were talking about Matt Nass and how I was saying he had a chance to win.
Okay.
Because Sampardi's not here. And he says, no, it's because Svi's not here that he can win, because he had beat him twice the last time. Unfortunately, Svi wasn't able to make it out here for this tournament, although he does say he wishes he was here. And I think I can speak on behalf of most of the players in the field when they say that they're just fine with him not being here, because, you know, he doesn't get to play that many GPs, but when he does, he makes them count. He had a strong finish at a GP Atlantic City and at the last Modern GP as well.
So who do you think is favored here going into the final game?
That is a really good question. I'm just going off my gut. I haven't really fleshed out this matchup fully, but I would say Ben is. He just seems to have more answers to what Owen's doing. Owen's deck's a little bit more narrow. It's harder for him to adapt to what his opponent's doing. It's much more narrowly focused, where, you know, we've seen from Ben that Owen doesn't really get in his way. If Ben goes, you know, has the Scapeshift, he can just do it. Yeah. He also has plenty of counter spells to back up that. So if it comes to Ben going off, he has the option to go off when he's ready. All he has to do is disrupt Owen enough to set himself up that long, and it seems like he has the tools to do that in his deck, where on Owen's side, Owen doesn't do a whole lot to disrupt his opponent. I mean, I don't know if Owen's running like Blood Moons or anything crazy.
He's got Defense Grid.
Okay, and so
sideboard.
But again, even then, that's Defense Grid is basically him saying, I still want to do what I'm going to do. as opposed to saying, I'm going to try to stop you from what you're doing. And Ben Stark's deck is very quick. I mean, it's probably a turn slower than Owen's, but with one disruption spell in there somewhere, Ben can go off still and end the game immediately.
Well, Ben here's taking a mulligan, going down to 6 cards. Going to put him in a little bit of a disadvantage against Owen's hand. Owen has a hand with only 1 land, a pair of sleight of hands, like a Taxian Probe, a Pyromancer's Ascension, and a Defense Grid. And he's going to turn 1 sleight of hand, going down to 18 in the process. Sees 2 lands, which is good. He needs a second land for his hand to be able to operate. Trying to decide between the two.
Is this Hollywooding from Owen, or is it actually just?
I think one was a Scalding Tar and one was a Steam Fence.
I see.
And Ben gonna play a line, crack it, and probably suspend Search for Tomorrow.
Ideal turn 1 play from Ben if that's what he has.
Yep.
Yeah.
Owen is going to cast turn 2 Pyromancer's Ascension. Is going to forgo the Defense Grid on his second turn. Which is actually not that bad.
Is that a Nature's Claim for Ben? I couldn't quite see. Let's see if he has them.
Yep, he does have Nature's Claim.
3. Now, he does decide to pass a turn here, though.
Well, he wants Owen to burn a bunch of cards to get that.
Trying to get it set up and then punish him for it?
Yeah. Because Owen does have a second sleight of hand in his hand.
Now, if Owen goes for Defense Grid, do you think that Ben kills a Pyromancer Ascension in response, or does he still wait? Okay.
Because
he's not really under any threat of having Owen go off that turn if he uses his mana for Defense Grid, right?
Sure. Although, in response to Gitaxian Probe.
All right, there it is. Nature's Claim, Remand, Scapeshift, land. So, pretty nice setup here for Ben Stark.
I mean,
you think you just burn that Remand? For whatever Owen casts this turn?
Probably, yeah. Unless it's a second Pyromancer's Ascension.
Okay.
If it's a second Pyromancer's Ascension, yeah, you probably still burn the Remand, right? You just want to dig more. I mean,
he just wants to get through his deck.
The only reason why Ben Stark's draw is weak is he only had 1 Accelerator in the form of Search for Tomorrow. So he can only, get to the 7 lands on turn 6 at the moment. And
all right, now Owen's in a much stickier spot than he just was. Now that he knows about the Remand, his decision tree is much broader than it was. He's going to start by cracking that Scalding Tarn. Now Ben hasn't got to look at Owen's hand, so Owen still has a lot of options, though. He's already down to 12.
Yeah, he's cracked quite a few fetch lands and played Steam Vents on tap twice.
I guess once you're below 18, it doesn't matter anyway. All right.
Peer through depths. Take a look at 5 cards.
Now I see that he has a Gitaxian Probe there available. But he's going to go for Sleight of Hand, which he also has in his graveyard already.
And he's got a second copy in his hand. He's going to cast Sleight of Hand.
And these, so far, have all resolved for Owen.
Yeah. No Remand wanting to be used, and Ben doesn't want to burn the Nature's Claim.
And
Owen finds it.
Assuming he would now. Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Search for Tomorrow comes out. Gets an island for Ben Stark.
Ben's already got another green source in hand for his Scapeshift. He wants to make sure that if he draws a Cryptic Command, he can build up to the mana to actually cast it. Which he has.
Land go.
All right. So Owen Turtenwald knows that Ben Stark has a remand in his hand, and he has to be cognizant of that. Otherwise, he's got kind of a free rein here to start setting himself up as best as possible.
Yeah, Owen's in a little bit of a tricky situation here. He can spend his entire turn casting a 2-mana enchantment or artifact, either Pyromancer's Ascension or Defense Grid. He's going to opt for Pyromancer's Ascension. That's going to get remanded. And so Owen is going to cast Serum Visions. He doesn't have another land, but he'll set himself up for the following turn. And he's going to put a Goblin Electromancer on the top.
And pass the turn. Tick-tock, Ben Stark just building up land drops here one by one. He's already up to 5 now. You mentioned it earlier. He didn't find any more land drop accelerators like Secure Tribe Elders, if those are still in, that kind of stuff. But he's just doing it the good old-fashioned way and just building up.
Yep.
Owen Turtenwald back up to 16 thanks to that Nature's Claim, but that's still below the threshold that Ben Stark actually cares about. Owen's had a lot of time here.
Yeah, I think that if he casts Pyromancer's Ascension here, he's going to cast Defense Grid.
See Ben Stark lean forward to look at that 8th edition Defense Grid. He can remand it.
Does he even have a remand? I think he's going to cast Peer Through Depths in response so that he can...
He can do both.
Does he have a remand, though? He cast it last turn, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yep. My bad. All right, he finds another Peer Through Depths. If he wants to use it, he's got to do it now.
Oh, he does have a second remand.
I can't hear anything that's coming.
Either one of his instants, if he wants to cast, he has to do it now, but he's going to cast Peer Through Depths. There you get to see Defense Grid. During each player's turn, each other player's spells cost 3 more.
Again, an indicator that Owen Turtenwald is not looking
I guess that's just interference on my end.
to disrupt what Ben Stark is doing. He's just trying to protect his own side of the combo.
I mean, if Ben found a Search for Tomorrow in one of these Peer Through Depths, it's game over. Right, I believe he has another land that put him up to 6 lands. Then he can cast Search for Tomorrow, get a 7th land, and can then cast Escape Shift.
His opponent's tapped out, so the way is clear if that's his line. He's going to take a Farseek.
Okay, I mean, that'll do it too.
Indeed.
I think that's going to be it for Owen Turtenwald. Ben S. just has to cast Farseek here.
That gets him up to...
if he's got a 3rd green source, but he doesn't. He needs a 3rd green source to do that. Just play Steam Vents Go. So he's given Owen an opening here to take this game. Owen gets a Steam Vents of his own. That might do it.
Now, Ben Stark, we did see that he has a remand here, and he can pay for the Defense Grid on remand, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there it is. And this is going to have to be enough to slow down Owen for an entire turn, basically, in order for Ben Stark to set up the win. We see he did not Farseek on his turn so that he had this play available to him. I mean, right? He's got to be scared. Owen sitting there with six cards in hand, 3 mana, and a Defense Grid up. That's about the time where you're like, well, he's ready to go off.
Yeah. I mean, Owen can still maybe make his way out of this. If he plays that
land drop.
Land untapped, the Steam Vents untapped, casts one of his rituals, then casts Manamorphose and casts Electromancer, right? He can start to slowly chain together stuff if his draws are good.
Yeah.
But I think that's his only way out. I mean,
he's got to figure he's going to die if he lets Ben Stark untap, right?
Yeah. I mean, he knows that because he knows that Ben has the Farseek and he knows Ben has
He saw the escape shift from earlier in the game from the Gitaxian probe. So yeah, he doesn't have...
But
so Ben Stark courtesy shows him.
Yeah, and
but that was this game, right, where that Owen saw the escape shift early.
It's still the 2nd green source that's missing. Or the 3rd green source, rather. Because he plays this. He plays the 7th land. Yeah, what am I saying?
Yeah, he can just play. He can just play. Yep.
And No, we were right the first time.
Yeah.
It's not like Owen can have something here, right? Because defense grid is in play, and he's tapped out.
Right. And there's 6 of those. Now the question, though, is on Ben Stark's side, does he have enough mountains to go with the Valakut? Because that is an issue for this deck. It can run out of
He only
mountains
needs
very
5.
awkwardly. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, Owen's got to sit here and make him show him 5 mountains with it, and that's it. So Owen falls 1 game to 2 to Ben Stark, who's able to enable a little bit of interaction and then his combo, where Owen had no interaction and was not able to get his combo off.